I'm Erik, Rosales in for Tracy Sable. Our top story tonight. A judge has prohibited several federal agencies and officials from the Biden administration from working with social media companies on protected speech. Yesterday's ruling is being called a win for the First Amendment and a defeat for censorship. Yes, Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg, along with the two other Democratic Maryland U.S. senators, paid a visit this afternoon to the crash site, reiterating that this is still a search and rescue operation. Good evening, Tracy. This is a monumental case which tests the boundaries of presidential power. It will likely be the last case the justices will hear this term, but will have far-reaching effects on the former president's three other criminal cases and the November 2024 presidential elections. Good evening, Tracy. Since late last week, more than 60 hours ago, students here at George Washington University have set up this encampment. Officials gave them till Saturday to leave. Well, that came and went, and even more protesters showed up. Late last night, protesters removed barriers as law enforcement tried to push out demonstrators accused of disrupting life on campus. According to the university, more than 200 people have joined the demonstration.
So our demands are immediate divestment from corporations complicit in the ongoing genocide in Gaza, a protection of pro-Palestinian speech on campus, and dropping any charges against pro-Palestinian student organizers.
The federal government, mostly through the Education Department, gives more than $200 billion in American tax dollars annually to institutions of higher learning. Now some lawmakers warn that may soon end.
There is no excuse for not enforcing the law with regard to discrimination and against certain groups, in this case Jewish students. It's got to be dealt with. It needs to be dealt with in a very direct and, I would argue, forceful way.
We need to revoke federal funding to these universities if they cannot keep control. We need to revoke these student visas for these violent protesters. You don't have a right to be here and to do this, but Jewish students have a right to be able to peacefully attend classes.
Democratic Congressman Richie Torres is pushing a bill that would impose third-party anti-Semitism monitors on campus, paid for by universities. Quote, the monitor would be appointed by the Secretary of Education. Failure to comply with the monitorship would result in loss of federal funds. Several universities like USC have decided to cancel graduation ceremonies.
The sooner these so-called elite universities get a hold of their campuses, the better. But I have been disturbed by the level of anti-Semitism in this country. I thought it was over a long time ago.
Several students I talked with say that they are concerned if they get arrested, it could hurt their chances of landing a job in the future. But in the same breath, they say if they don't take a stand now, nothing will change in Gaza. It was a long day of testimony for James Biden. Now, this was not a deposition because the president's brother was never sworn in. However, it is a crime to lie to Congress. He was grilled by House Oversight and Judiciary Committee members as they try to connect the dots between President Joe Biden and his family's business dealings. On the top of their list, a $200,000 loan which James Biden received from his brother. James paid it back, but on the same day, he received a $200,000 check from AmeriCorps, a healthcare company that has since gone bankrupt.
Excuse us, please. Come on,
Excuse us.
No, thanks.
Mr.
You talk to your
Biden,
brother about your test. We're not going to comment on it.
James Biden, the brother of President Joe Biden, walked past reporters and cameras without saying a word. But inside, he defended the president and said Joe had no influence in the family business, and adds he kept his business life separate. Oversight Committee Chair Congressman James Comer has promised to get to the truth, which he calls a pay-to-play scheme.
Joe Biden has repeatedly lied to the American people about his family's corrupt influence peddling schemes. Our investigation has revealed how Joe Biden, you participated in and benefited from his family cashing in on the Biden name around the world.
The case against President Biden took a hit recently after the Justice Department charged a former FBI informant, Alexander Smirnov, of lying about the president and his son Hunter's business involvement with Burisma. Republicans say it doesn't change the facts of the case.
Did Hunter Biden get put on the board of Burisma? Yes. Was he paid $1 million a year? Yes. Did Joe Biden condition the release of tax money for the firing of the prosecutor who was applying the pressure? Yes. All four of those things are facts, absolutely, regardless of what the confidential human source may or may not have said.
the FBI says Smirnov's testimony is all made up. And your thoughts?
Yeah, I was hopeful that Chairman Comer would be announcing today the end of the whole impeachment investigation. It's been a wild goose chase built on conspiracy theory and lies from the beginning, and now we know that Russian intelligence operatives were behind creating the propaganda and disinformation at the very foundation of this investigation.
I asked Congressman Biggs about it.
We don't know it's false or made up. There's been an indictment. You can indict a cheese sandwich. This is the same FBI that denied that document even existed.
But what evidence do you have of a bribery scheme now?
Back away. We've got lots of evidence.
If you didn't hear him there, he said that we have lots of evidence. James Biden is not the only family member planning to testify. The president's son, Hunter, is scheduled to appear for a similar closed-door deposition next Wednesday. He had previously defied 2 congressional subpoenas but agreed to testify after Republicans dropped their plan to hold him in contempt. Tracy, the stakes are high. This is the first time Supreme Court justices are considering the scope of a specific state's abortion ban since Roe v. Wade was overturned. Pro-abortion activists say the Biden administration is right in using the Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act, EMTALA, to force nearly all hospitals to provide emergency abortions.
It's appalling that we are here today arguing about whether pregnant people who are facing blood loss, infection, the risk of death, the risk of loss of future fertility, can receive the health care that they need, including abortion.
Well, there's no conflict between EMTALA and the Defense of Life Act in Idaho. Both of them preserve the life of the mother and the unborn child. And so this manufactured difference is a very transparent attempt by the Biden administration to reimpose that federal mandate on abortion.
Inside, the justices heard oral arguments. The court is deciding whether Idaho's abortion restrictions conflict with EMTALA.
In cases like these, where there is no other way to stabilize the woman's medical condition and prevent her from deteriorating, EMTALA's plain text requires that she be offered pregnancy termination as the necessary treatment. And that's how this law has been understood and applied for decades.
Idaho accuses the Biden administration of a federal power grab to force its pro-abortion agenda on states.
If ER doctors can perform whatever treatment they determine is appropriate, then doctors can ignore not only state abortion laws, but also state regulations on opioid use and informed consent requirements. That turns the presumption against preemption on its head and leaves emergency rooms unregulated under state law.
Physicians say they're confused about competing laws and are worried about losing their licenses or face stiff penalties, even jail time.
It completely turns the entire system of how we've operated on its head. And it really, I think for a lot of doctors would make them start questioning, well, wait a minute, if the Biden administration is saying this about abortion, what's next?
All of this is playing out during an election year when the Biden administration is using the issue of abortion to energize voters and try and get them to the polls. I'm Erik Rosales. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly, positive development. An update on a church leader jailed for months by the regime in Nicaragua. Meeting with allies, President Joe Biden hosts the Prime Minister of Sweden as the Scandinavian country applies for membership to NATO. Trouble in the waters. Updates on Iran's rising tension with the U.S. Navy. And logging off. A one-time tech internet businessman tells us why he's now a Dominican priest. These stories and much more tonight.